everybody. I'm Jo Faraday. I'm Managing Director of Sheer Edge and Co-Academy Director of Sheer Edge Training. I'm really delighted to be able to welcome today Ninder Johal. He is CEO of Natural Group of Companies, and he's also Deputy Lieutenant of the West Midlands. So welcome, Ninder. It's really great
nice
to have you.
It's great to be here, and I look forward to chatting to you.
Yes. So, Ninder, tell me a little bit, because I know all about you, but there's some people that may not be aware. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm born in Birmingham. I did the usual thing, which was I went to university, got a finance degree. So I wanted to become an accountant. Can you believe that?
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that about you. So.
Yeah. So unfortunately, 16 interviews later, which I didn't secure employment, it was clear that accountancy wasn't right for me. They obviously told me to bugger off. So I then quickly did what we call an MBA, a Masters in Business Administration. Then I went into management consultancy, but I had a secret love for music. And so I was playing in a band at the same time, as well as doing this consultancy role. And then I suppose I did the unthinkable. My parents were absolutely horrified when I announced that I was going to drop my job as a consultant and set up a record company. And well, listen, it was difficult. And then the dream I had, the vision I had for the record company is that one day I'd have a track in the charts. And so the music I was promoting at the time was Bhangra music, which is Asian dance music. And it took about 10, 12 years, but we actually went number 5 in the UK charts. Yeah. And I still remember watching Top of the Pops, and it came on. And then we had Jay-Z, who came in and featured on the track. So we broke the States at number 7.
Wow.
And we had 9 number 1s. So it was a busy year. So of course, the problem then is once you've done what you set out to do, which was to break the charts, what's the next step?
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't going to have a top 5 every week. So I thought I'll try something different. And I took my skills, which was music, sound, lights, production, videos, branding, marketing, because that's what you have to do with a record company. And I transferred it into the corporate world. So cut this long story short, I then set my own event production company up. Now, I had no experience in that, in the sense that I didn't go to university to study events, so I sort of fell into it. But if I took those transferable set of skills, all those skills I just said, production, lighting, marketing, branding, then it seemed to fit the world of events quite well. So I then did my first event in Wolverhampton, which seemed to do really well. I then moved into Birmingham and did the Signature Awards. From there, I went to Wolverhampton and did the Natural Business Awards. Then I went off to the East Midlands and called the Natural Entrepreneurship Awards, where you were a fantastic winner.
Oh.
Congratulations. And so Wolverhampton, Birmingham, Leicester, we had one planned for September in London at Hilton Park Lane, but I think we're about to pull the plug on that tomorrow because I just don't think September's going to happen. And then in 2022, and again, this just tells you how uncertain a world we live in, I always wanted to expand abroad. So we were planning to go to India, New Delhi, in February 2022. But with the pandemic now, you're not quite sure, but I still think fingers crossed.
Yeah.
When we come to February 2022.
We've got to have hope, haven't we? Got to have hope.
Yeah.
So as a fellow industry professional, Ninder, how have you been managing during this lockdown period? What have you been up to?
Well, look, first, I think I must have done what everybody else done, which was gone into shock first.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you think, hold on, have I just heard what I've just heard?
Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't a total shock because if you're in the hospitality events game, you tend to move around with people like that. And people who are running restaurants were already saying to me that people had stopped coming in. So if you think of the private sector, some of the restaurants shut well before the Prime Minister issued the lockdown. So a lot of industries were already shutting down. So the signals were coming.
Yeah.
And I know events were being cancelled all over the place. Restaurants were shutting down. But despite that, you still go into, whoa, is this... So then you go into denial. No, this can't be right. And then you reflect, because you sit back and think, well, maybe it'll be okay in a month. Maybe it'll be okay in 2 months. And then so you sit and reflect, because I don't think you should jump straight away just because something's happened.
Yeah.
You sit back and reflect. Then when it became apparent that this could be something much longer, then it forces you to look at your business model. And then I start to deep dive into my systems, my processes. Could I improve them? Having sat back and sort of reflected. So I started to look at that, and then I looked at my ecosystem. What else could I do with? Remember, I spoke earlier about transferable skills.
Yes.
So what could I do with the set of skills that I have now that I could transfer and potentially in the future offer? So obviously we're good at branding, we're good at marketing. We understand how to put an event together, so logistics and things. So the last month or so we've been setting up now, and hopefully we'll go live soon with a podcast. So we'll have a monthly podcast. And the reason we went for that was, and because you went to, you were a winner, is we like to talk about thought leadership.
Yes.
About where business is going. So we're not just an awards night. We like to bring in an element of learning and thought leadership. So that seemed to be a natural place for us to take the podcast. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
absolutely. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah, we're not really just an awards night. There is other elements to it. So the podcast now seems a logical idea.
Yeah.
Because our database is now quite strong nationally, it seems to be the right place to celebrate and acknowledge people who've won in the past, but other thought leaders. So we're in the process of setting up a digital magazine.
Brilliant.
Which we'll be sending out. So the podcast and the digital magazine, you can still see.
Yeah, the synergies between it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And now that we know where we're going long term in terms of where we think the virus is going, and I know the numbers have dropped to 55 today, but it's going to be around for a while. So we're now planning a series of hybrid events.
Great.
Online.
Yeah.
With some of our sponsors who've supported us in the past.
Yeah.
But again, helping those people out in the wider world understand what's going on today. So all our developments are around thought leadership, really, if that makes sense.
But it's so needed, though. It's really needed. I mean, as I said to you, I've been running every other day, and I've listened to Audible and podcasts while I'm running, and I'm sure there's lots of other people out there that will subscribe to your channels, definitely. As Deputy Lieutenant of the West Midlands, what's been your take on how businesses recover? Because obviously it's not going to be easy. It hasn't been easy. It isn't going to be easy. There's going to be a process, isn't there?
Look, it's we used to be able to describe an economy depending on sectors, what sector you're in. But actually, it's not about sectors anymore. This is about social distancing and how social distancing affects your business model.
Yeah.
That's what it's down to. So you could be in different sectors and be affected differently. So unfortunately, we're in the events game, we're in the hospitality game, and we are the one sector that's been really affected by social distancing. Now, people have said to me, well, why don't you just go and do your awards night online? Well, I don't think that would work, because I think what we offer, and most people in the events game offer, is an experience. It's about an experience. And I don't think you can replicate the experience of networking, learning, talking to other people, celebrating. I don't think that can be replicated online. So, unfortunately, people like myself and other people in hospitality, and where a lot of people congregate, I think we're at the end of the queue. Now, the problem with that is, what's the government going to do in October when potentially 2 million people could be unemployed if they take away the furlough? So those in that industry are going to suffer, and it'll be interesting how the government reacts to that. The government has two ways to go. Either they put in further support, or they accept that sector will be damaged. Talking about events and hospitality.
Yeah.
The implications of that are quite dire. The people who are going to be affected in those industries are students. We get a lot of part-time work. Women, who again, part-time work will in and out. People on 0 hours who prefer that type of work.
Yeah.
and young people. So young people have just graduated and want to get into that type of work, they'll be affected. Now, the consequence of that, then, you see, is if you don't support the economy thereafter, then you might potentially have 5 years of a recession. And I don't know about you, but I think if someone's been out of work for 5 years, the likelihood of them getting a job long term gets worse by year. So they suffer from what we call a scarring effect. They could be scarred for life. Mm. And if you replicate that across other industries where people are getting unemployed, it's a dangerous place we're going to be in post-October. So I think those are the kind of things that the government will be thinking about. There's a demand issue. So I'll give you an example. In South Korea, their lockdown finished at the end of March. And so their cinemas have been open throughout April and May. But I understand they're still 95% down. So there still isn't the demand for people to buy these products. So there's a demand issue. I don't know if the government can do anything about demand, because even if they say to you, we're going to reduce the VAT to 10%, are you still going to go to a restaurant? Maybe not. Maybe you are. So there's a demand issue.
It's a confidence thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think only one of three things can happen to bring confidence back. One is a vaccine. I think the vaccine is superb. Mm-hmm. People know, boom, job done. If they could come up with a miracle pill, so that if you feel a bit ill, you pop the pill and you're sorted. The third one, which may or may not have an impact on confidence, is the R value. Mm. So we know in some countries it's gone. New Zealand, it's completely gone. Yeah. There were no deaths, I understand, in Scotland and Northern Ireland. I know we've had 55. And of course, you do see people's confidence not that dented, particularly amongst the young, if you take the riots in London and the marches. So people don't seem... So, listen, it's a complicated place. It's a complicated situation. Government has a role to play. Business has a role to play. Consumers have a role to play. And, when you throw all that into the melting pot, that's a very difficult place to predict or to be certain about.
It is. I mean, we're talking to clients all the time about, the meetings they may want to hold in October, November. And it's really tricky because you don't want to tell them no, but you've got to manage expectations. But then equally, we don't know. So it's like, I really don't know. What are your thoughts about the possibility that the West Midlands could be used as a test bed for earlier reopening of tourism, hospitality and cultural sectors?
Well, that's been interesting, because you can see why, actually, because you can't do it in London. London's too big. Yeah. And which part of London do you have? But if you take the Midlands, you got the ICC, you got the NEC, you got Stratford upon just on the outside. Yeah. So you could pick a few venues, including the NEC, and you could test it and to see if it works. And I think you have nothing to lose, because clearly the indicators seem to be going down. Yeah. And I think as of next 15th, virtually every shop's open. Yeah. Middle of July, restaurants are going to be encouraged to open. Yeah. You can go to garden centres as long as it's outside. You can go buy a car if it's outside. I know they're starting to sell cars. And the impression I get now from people is that trade is picking up. So I think the West Midlands is a great place. It's nice, contained. You can, contain it, and you can check in, you can mirror it. It's not too big like London, which would be difficult to police. So, listen, if we can do a test bed and it works, fantastic. The West Midlands is a test bed for 5G. But, look, anything that can get more certainty.
I was going to say, the economy starting again in some capacity. I mean, it is going to be a new normal. It's not going to be normal at all, but it will, there's lots of evidence of many venues putting lots of things in place to make people feel more confident, whether it's temperature checkers, whether it's, socially distance set out events. There's much, and it's encouraging to see that venues are taking that, those steps forward, because again, it's a confidence thing. And I think people need to start feeling confident that at some point, it will be okay to run live events, in a physical capacity again.
Yeah, I think it's all about risk, isn't it? It's all about risk. So when we step outside the house and get into a car, there's an element of a risk.
Yeah, of course.
When we get into a train, there's an element of a risk. When we get onto an aeroplane, there's an element of a risk. There's a risk attached to this. Is it 1 in 4,000 or something like that, I think?
Yeah.
So there's a risk to everything. It's how you understand that risk amongst other risks that you take every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because it's on the news every day and it's in your face, then you tend to place that risk. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but you tend to place that risk above everything else.
Yeah.
But the vaccine, I think the vaccine will be important.
Absolutely. So tell us about what events you've got planned. You've obviously told us about your podcast and your hybrid events. So what will your hybrid events look like? What can you give us any like little?
No, a couple of things. So, I think we're going to have two types of online. One is thought leadership around 20, 30 people, special invite only.
Yeah.
And then we'll replicate it onto a much bigger scale so anybody can tune in. And we'll pick up, so one could be a sector approach, so only people from one sector. So we're going to try and call in leading entrepreneurs, people who've made because, at our events, we always have entrepreneurs who give a keynote speech. So I think we should be on a journey of learning. So I think we can always learn.
Absolutely.
So I think we'll be focusing on that. We'll be focusing, and I think what both the online does for us. And remember, I've been in the music industry where we had to make a transition from a physical product, CD, to streaming,
to digital, and to streaming,
to digital. So we've seen that. The difference, and I say this to everybody in the events game, the difference was that when I faced back in 2007, when the iPhone came out and everything went digital, is that our business model was redundant. Nobody was going to go back to CDs and cassettes. That model just got disbanded. But with events, that's different.
Yeah.
You can still put on as many online events as you want, but people still want to go and experience.
You won't ever get rid of the. I don't believe.
No, you won't. You won't. So, my advice to anybody in the live events experience game is sit tight, remain confident, be optimistic. The day will return when we go back to what we've done. It's just that nobody saw this. Just think insurance companies, how they will now react when you go for insurance, and how that world has now changed, and of course I say to people, they say, well, but how will we exist? And I said, well, look, it's like with any other product. If you've got a strong brand, a strong brand, people will wait for that brand to emerge again. Yes. Those who don't have a brand or a clear offering in the marketplace, they've now going bust in the real world. I'm talking about retailers who are now going bust. Yeah. Because really they never had a strong brand that could withstand.
Well, it's about adapting as well, isn't it? It's hard because in this situation, who can adapt? But there are many startups, that are starting up now, maybe people that have been furloughed or people that have been made redundant, and they're thinking, well, I've got nothing to lose. So what advice would you give to anyone starting up in the business of being in events right now? What would you say to them?
Okay. So I say that advice would depend on where you are in the supply chain. So I'll give you an example. So if you were setting up an audio-visual business, so by that I mean you're supplying the sound, the lighting, the projection, I would say carry on doing the research, find your customer base, but don't invest. Yeah. Only invest when we have a clear idea when the offline events pick up. If on the other hand, your audio-visual is linked to online events, projectors and things, then start the investment. If on the other hand, you want to do your own events, so you want to host your own events, similar that I do, then there's always a good time to set up. And in fact, the barrier to entry is nil now because you could set it up through online, where in the past you would have had to get a venue and you would have had to do it that way. So if you're looking to host your own, I can't think of a better time to set up. Mm-hmm. There's no barrier to entry. and your only challenge would be whether it was offline or online events is how's your event going to stand out from the rest? Why would people want to come to your online event as well as why would they want to come to your physical event?
Yeah.
So I think the challenge still remains around branding and marketing.
Yes.
Depending where you are on that supply chain will determine at what point you enter that market.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ninder. Really, really enjoyed chatting. I always enjoy chatting to you, but it's great to sort of share thoughts on the current situation and how we, can move forward. I know there will be plenty of people that will want to know more about your thought leadership and everything. So we will pop Ninder's details on our chat so that people can reach out to you directly for that. But yeah, thanks for your time.
And listen, good luck to everybody in the events game. It really is just chin up. As I said, dive into your business. Just, are you sure you got everything pinned down? Are you sure everything's done? Are there things you've never got around to doing your website? Do them now.
Yeah, that's it. Get your house in order. Absolutely.
Get it in order now. You will never have the time again.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. Thanks a lot, Ninder. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you.